Welcome back. Today we're going to do the Butch Caddis. This caddis is, it's kind of unique. I made this fly essentially to fish the Madison in the really fast water where it's just like ripping. And I actually did the fly originally so I could pull it underwater and have it pop back to the surface. I was fishing up above here one day and there was just this massive hatch going on and just caddis are popping everywhere. And it was really obvious that particular day that they were hitting those things. I mean, they could be skirting around in the water. They were eating the ones popping out. And I kept pulling on my fly and trying to get it to, go underwater and come up, and limited success. And so I just came up with this fly that was really super hard to get to sink. And so because of the way the wing, as you can see on here, is the wing's it's a laid back wing. It's a trimmed wing. It's a pretty unique setup. It's got a little bubble head, but you could actually pull this fly under, and especially that was right about the time that the dry shakes were really popping in, really getting popular then too. They've been around for a while, but you could really overdress this, and you could really literally pull it underwater like 3 feet in front of the fish and let it pop up, and the thing, it was just like an automatic. And you can see what it is. It's this head. It's really not that complicated a fly. It's got a little antron shuck or eggs. I don't know what the hell those things are. I don't know. We put these things, it's like a bead head when it first came out. I mean, suddenly it's on everything. Well, these shucks showed up. I think on the first one was probably Matthew's ex-caddis, I'm not sure, but suddenly there was shucks on all these flies. I don't know why I put it on in the first place, but now I can't seem to quit because I don't really think it represents the shuck itself. Maybe an egg sac, but while I'm fishing this fly, there's no egg sacs, these are full-on hatchers, so it doesn't seem to matter. I put it on now, and you'll see I also leave it underneath. I do the same thing on this underwing. We're going to tie that in. Gives a little shine, I don't know, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just that catching that light. But we're going to have this fly that has a little bit of shine. It's got this really from the bottom, you've got this really big wing set on top, right? You look at it, it's like, man, that's kind of over the top, and then you get underneath and you look at it and you see the silhouette, and it's pretty accurate. It's much more accurate than even like an ex-caddis, which has its wing like this, because in reality they don't really see the wing. If you'll take the time to pick one up and look at it as it's sitting, there's this little tiny V. The body sticks, there's this little tiny V sticks out the back, not that giant ass wing that we've got on so many of our flies. And so this one's, when you look at the bottom, it's pretty accurate, and you got the base, the back of the wing kind of sticking back. And then you got that little bubble head, and you got a couple of rubber legs. I actually didn't put the rubber legs on the originals. I think that was when we were doing a commercial. We thought maybe they would sell better with the rubber legs. It was kind of when the rubber legs were coming in and shit. Everything had a rubber leg on it. They got them on worms now. But we put them on. It didn't hurt the fly. I don't really think it helped it a lot. But if you want, I'm going to put them on this when we tie it. But I don't think you have to if you don't want to deal with it. And so, anyway, we're going to do, like I said, it's a really simple fly. And I'll talk about that when I set the wings. Also how I do my own ex-caddis. So it's got an antron shuck. It's got a superfine body. It's got the antron underwing, the deer hair overwing, and some rubber legs. As normal, I mean, because I just love this stuff. I've been using it forever. Superfine for my body. And I don't like a picky bodies on it. I like the body to be really tight. And then I'm going to use I'm going to use Antron, I'm going to use Z-Lon on this one. This is Z-Yarn, so the same thing. It's, if you like Z-Yarn or if you like Antrons, you can use poly on it too, but I don't think you get as good a reflective value underneath there. So that's why I tend to use the Z-Yarns a little bit more, because there's just a little bit of shine to them, and I'm thinking that's what that shuck and all that stuff is. I'm going to do this one an 1180. This is down eye hook. If you want to do a ring eye, that's great. I'm going to use an 1180 14. We tie these things. I don't do a lot of 14 caddis, frankly. It's mostly 16s and 18s, but I do, a lot of times when I'm tying these, I tie them on a little bit bigger hook just so it's easier to see. So, and the last thing we're going to have is the centipede legs, which this one's going to have the minis. The mini, and then there's the small. This is what I put them on originally. If I was doing a 14, I would probably go up to the smalls. The minis, they're more akin to hackle size. You know, they're pretty skinny. Thing you gotta be careful with all these rubber leg things is that they rot, so don't leave them out in the sun. You can also use Spanflex. Where'd that go? I got some barred cotton. I love this stuff, but it doesn't come small enough. It might this year, I don't know, but I know the Spanflex stuff, it still does its leg thing, but the stuff doesn't rot. And so, big nice thing about this one, if your legs rot off, it's real simple to put them back on because you don't have to fight anything. So, onward we go. Again, this is a size 14. We're going to have, oh, forgot one thing. I'm using 10-aught, Olive 10-aught Roman Mauser Power Soap. So, this fly, it's super simple. When you get good at tying this thing, you can really rip. But put your sample fly up there and see where I'm going to use roughly, I'm going to leave about 20% for this hook to, where'd that wax go? Let's give this a little quick flip of wax. I'm going to leave about 20%. You can see right there in the close-up that I don't go to the eye. That's where my bodies and things are going to stop, so that I can have a stop point so I don't have this giant head or a really small. This one you get away with a lot of stuff because you dub all the way forward, but it's a habit. So we're going to come back here. Excuse me. All right. I'm going to come back forward here without a sink there. I'm going to take this Z-line, and I'm going to, now this is a size 14, and this is just a single strand, right? So it's just one strand of this stuff, but it's still a little heavy for me. I don't want all of that in there. And again, I don't really buy into this trailing shuck thing on this particular, for this fly, but I still put it in there, but I just don't want quite as much. So I'm going to leave this, I'm going to tie it so, I've got about an inch of it, and I'm going to lay this back so I don't cut it off. And I'm going to tie this in right here at the front. We're going to come back here nice and tight so this doesn't move anywhere on us. Get back. Leave that there. And again, I'm going to fold that back, not that full length, but just leave it nice and long. Come in here and just cut this off. I don't like really long. I mean, you see some shucks will be like this long. That's more of a mayfly type style, These things, on these, I kind of half-ass think it's an egg sac, half shuck, half it doesn't mean anything. I think that's 3/2. I'm not really sure you can do that. I can. Johnny couldn't. So I'm going to take some brown olive on this particular one. I'm going to take, as always, I'm going to keep it nice and light so it's just floating in the air here. Give me you. And we're going to dub this. These things don't have giant bodies, and so I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to start really light at the front here. So we're going to, and the one thing, I'm always harping about tapers, taper. And we're going to do a taper, but if you were to take the time to look at the belly of a caddis, and I'll tell you how you do that. You go to your car and you put it on the windshield before you do anything like have too much beer, and you just look at it right there. You can just look at those. So you get to your car, there's caddis all over it. Look at them from the bottom. And what you're going to see is there's almost nothing. They're like a tube. There's nothing to a caddis. Everything we do, like the elk hair caddis with the hackle and the wing and the shit, you look at one of those things on the windshield like a fish would be looking at it, and you see it's just a tube with that little V of a wing and these little tiny legs sticking out the side. And what you will notice also is there's very little taper to their bodies. And so I'm not as crazy about this as I am with a mayfly. So, but I want a sufficient body. I've got this dubbing on here really tight. And I harp about that a lot because a tight, the dubbing, excuse me, not the antron, the dubbing does not float. It's not, we always say we got floating, dubbing, this and that. It just doesn't absorb water. But the water can still absorb around all those filaments. So you've got all these little filaments that you've spun around your dubbing as you're dubbing, And if you leave it loose, what you get is you get migration of water into that. That's what gink and the rest of all those floatants, all that stuff we've had forever, it doesn't float either. It's hydrophobic. It doesn't let the water absorb into your materials. And once the water's saturated and the water's all through that thing, then it just plops through it. It doesn't float anymore. And so the tighter you put this dubbing on here, the less likelihood you have of that migration of the water, and so into the dubbing. So I'm going to come in here, and you can see where I'm on the close-up. I'm going to go right to where we stopped the thread, and I'm going to stop just a little bit. See how tight I'm putting that body on there? And now I'm going to come forward, I'm going to shrink that down just a little bit right here, because I'm going to pull that wing back over. I was a little bit short right there. So I'm going to come in here, and this is going to get laid back, so I'm going to come forward, and I'm going to come forward probably 3 turns onto the bare hook. Because if you try to tie it in on top of the body, it's not really that, it's just kind of loose. And so I come in here, and you see, and I hold on to it. Whoops, I slid off that. See, I've come about halfway into that. I left 20% or so of that hook. I've come halfway into it, cinch it down nice and tight, and go right over top of it. And you can see that I've just got a little tiny bump here. And you want that. If you don't fold it over, if you try to do it right on your body, you're going to get a big buildup, because we still have other stuff to put on here. So now I'm going to take this, I want this underwing. I cut this off right now. Put your scissors right on don't pull it really tight, just pull it taut. If you pull, especially with Z-line, especially crinkly Z-line, which I'm using, this is crinkly Z-line. If you pull that really tight and cut it, it'll bounce back, and it'll be a third shorter than you started with. So you just barely pull it so it's tight. I want it to be the body length right there. And that's just going to be this little bit of reflective value underneath it. So now we're nice and tight there. We're going to dub this body. We're up into the head portion now. The abdomen's all done. There's really not as distinct of a break in the abdomen and thorax like there is on a mayfly. So now we've got this little RS2 looking thing going on here. And so you can see I'm almost to the eye. And so I've left about 2 turns maybe of open so I can get in here. And now I'm going to take my deer hair, which I think I forgot to say. No, I did say we're going to have a deer hair wing. And I'm not going to go into a great detail on this, on the deer hair. But we're using short fine, and we're going to fold it. So you need a little bit longer. You're going to need a little bit longer hair than you would if you were doing like an X Caddis or something like that, because we're going to fold it, right? And so what I'm looking for, I still like to have that nice clean break. I mean, I've got a lot of tutorials on this. I like that nice clean break, but on this particular fly, I'm going to see if I can get one that compares out pretty good here. One, I like a lighter wing. I use again, I tied this fly for fast water. I tied it for choppy water. I like to be able to see it, so I go for the lighter color hair like this. This is a little bit darker. This is premium hair. Both of them are. This one you can see is pretty beat up. But on this, I want a higher count, less thickness to the hair. So this is a little bit thicker hair on my right, and this hair is a little bit thinner. I don't know if you can see that real well, but when you're looking at it, you can see it okay? When you're looking at it, you just try to get more count. Like if you could get 5 more hairs per stack, then, with the thinner stuff, you get a better wing silhouette when you're sitting out there. And again, because we're not really using the tips, I'm not as concerned with the length up here of it where it breaks, because I'm going to tie it in and fold it over. I'm actually going to be using the butts for the wing. So just look for some light colored hair with a really good count. Just a lot of thinner hairs. Make sure they still got their wiggle to them and they're hollow and all that. But look for the higher density. Thinner hair, more of it. Okay. Now, in a lot of these flies, you know, I'm going to do a thing on stackers, but people are, I mean, I get tons and tons of questions on stackers, especially because of the swinger stackers, these are the old J-Nicks. I just changed the name of it, is all I did when I bought the company. But this small and mediums, and I've talked about this a lot, I think you can, with big hair, virtually any stacker will work, right? They're all good, but it's not as critical. On these small flies, I think these are where the really smaller, you know, adapted to actually what we do, these smaller stackers really come in handy. And it's because you can get the hair in and still get a hold of it. When you use some of the bigger ones, especially the bigger round stackers, when you go to pull it out, there's like this much space at the bottom, and the stuff's everywhere, right? And it's got this huge area to displace. With this one, with these smaller stackers, I mean, we make them down even smaller. It's just a lot easier. When you open this thing up, you can see it. Everything's there, and it's not migrating. As you see, you know, it's really, to me, that's the real critical. When you get anything under stacking hair under 14s, then things get really. It's nice to have the right tool. So here I'm going to take this underwing here, and this is where this style is completely different than any other style. I'm going to use this tip hair because it's going to help float the fly. It's not going to build a ton of bulk because it's just, I don't have that much of it. And then, but I'm going to double it over, and that's what's going to give me this floatability of this fly. So the tip hair is right here, and I tie it just about the length of the Z-line. So there's the end of the Z-line. I'm going to put this tip hair in here. I'm going to get just a nice grip on it. Come in here, spin your thread to your right, and we're going to go right at the eye, 2 turns, and pull. Okay? So that's just setting the hair. Don't let go of the tip. Now come back here, and I do just kind of open loop, 2 of them. So you can see I've got this big bulky wad out front here, and I've got still this nice tight little wing in the back, and then just come over and hold it up and get it and just give it 2 or 3 turns, and just before you move on right now, take a look on the bottom, just look underneath, see that you can still see your body, and you can see that you haven't rolled the hair all over. It really wouldn't make much difference on the fishability of this thing, but it looks a lot better if you've got it set right there. And then make sure it's not laying down, like did your wing get pulled over or anything. Just get a hold of it, and then pull it down and cinch it down, give it 2 or 3 turns. Okay, then come in here. I'm going to trim this out before I put my rubber legs on. If you put your rubber legs on and then go to trim this thing, I assure you, you will have 1 less rubber leg, so you'll have a cripple. And so it will not do what you want it to. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut this wing at the shuck length. Boom, right there. So now you can see I've got a giant head, or a wing I mean. And it's way more than I need right now. But I'm going to do more trimming. I'm going to come in here, and by the way, this is why it's called a butch, is because it reminded me of getting a haircut when I was a little kid when we got what was called a butch haircut. Straight across, because I'm just cutting this flat like this. All right? And I don't need this front hair to do much. It's kind of a waste in some ways, but it does add the floatability to this thing. It makes it so when you pull it underwater, it just pops through the surface. And if you're not going to do that, if you're not going to try that at all, it doesn't matter. You can't sink the fly. So then I'm going to come in here. I've got them shortened up. And so now I'm just going to come in on the side, and I'm going to take those away. And I'm going to cut it straight. So I've got a pretty flat, just a flat cut on the top. Got a little bit of hair right there. And so I've got pushing it down just like that. Come in and just cut those edges off. They shouldn't be the same length. These hairs in the middle should be slightly short, should be half as long, and just a handful of them sitting back. When you look at that from the bottom, you can't really see much. I got a little pull over there. There's not much other than the wing and the back coming off flat, and the body's obscuring most of this at this point. Okay. One trim here. By the way, this is an incredible yellow Sally pattern. All you do it, you just do it like it is, and I fish two of them, the Goober and the Butch. But this one, if you're in fast water, you just do it in different color. You keep it in that 12-14 size. It's a money yellow Sally. So now I'm going to take this micro. You know what I think I'm going to do? I'm going to do it with this stand. This is the size that we first put on them, and this is the small, not the mini. And this is a size 14. So I'm going to put the bigger one on so you can see it better. I like these minis better. They just, I don't know. I just too old school, I think. I just didn't get used to the rubber leg on everything. You know, like I said, you see them on worms now. But I like things for a reason, and this is going to have a pair of legs, and this is size 14. I think these will be a little bit better fit. Most of mine, I use that mini, because when you get down to 16, 14, like the one I don't know what I did with it, this one here, this fly here was the one I pulled out. This was a sample one, but you can see that the legs are really tiny. And that's, I mean, if you look at this thing, you'll see a real one. You'll see that the legs they're not huge, and they're really short. They're pretty stubby compared to a mayfly. So now I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take both of them, set them right on top, and pull down just a little bit. I'm going to give it a second pull it off to the side. While there's still tension on your thread, pull it off to the side, get them right on the edge. You shouldn't have to fight this. If you put too much tension and you're pulling really hard, you're going to end up breaking these legs. Now, I'm going to put these right through the center. I'm going to whip these right through the center. Give me you. And down. Pull. Set your legs. You're done. Get them right. Make sure that everything's where you want it right now. And I do this on my antacid too. I like the front legs just slightly shorter than the rear legs. I don't know why. For me, it just looks better. But just do it in two cuts. Don't try to go in on your legs wide open and just cut them exactly. Go in and look things over and just say, okay, yeah, that's right. I don't know. Every time I try to cut these things and just go for it, I always end up one's not long enough. Just take your time on your legs. It's pretty simple. And so now we're going to come in here and just look it over. I'm looking for my body, that I don't have a lot of stuff obstructing the body. I'll turn that a little bit so you can see it better when we roll it. And what you can see is it's got a really flat top, right? It's got a real flat, where are we at there, Jeremy? So is that good right there? So it's got a flat top. If I've got, and I saw this earlier and missed it, if I look on the bottom and I see stuff that's hanging down here, like the underwing, if it's down, just trim it out right now. You want to see the body, a little bit of the reflection of that antron. You want to see your legs, that they're V'd out to the side nicely. And then you want to see that from the bottom, that the wing, that the longest part here, this part right here, is right about at the tip of the antron shuck. And so, that's going to be the wing that they see. But it also has a secondary function. And like a lot of flies, this fly, that wing, when it comes down and it hits the water, that deer hair, which is really hard to saturate this stuff, when that deer hair hits, when the fly hits, that deer hair catches it. When it's breaking the meniscus, going poof through the water, stops that thing from going underwater. It's a secondary flotation thing. Now you got this bulbous little head, which is all air trap. It's everything in there is air trap. This fly, like I said, is virtually impossible to sink the thing. Fishes like crazy. This is you should skitter your caddis. You should learn to move your flies on the water, especially caddis, man. They're runners. They take off. Learn to skate these things in little tiny movements. This fly, the legs will be going. It's hard to sink. It's a great fly. It's a great kid fly too, man. They can fish this thing all day. Or like Johnny, the same thing. He can't even sink this thing. Hope you liked it. Hope it helped you out.